and fail as often as you possibly can. Rush towards failure. When you meet failure, have the mindset not that you failed, but almost be delighted that you found something that didn't work.
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
He's dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tight it out,
Hey guys, welcome to the Everyday Jiu Jitsu Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan. The Everyday Jiu Jitsu Podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu Jitsu. Today we're going to discuss an episode that I've been thinking about doing for a couple of months now. One day I woke up and I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to do it. It's taken a lot of brainstorming, so I hope you enjoy it. Today's topic is how to learn a skill. Very big topic, obviously, vast and quite important, especially if you are a skill-driven person or a jiu-jitsu practitioner. Before we get into it, please, if you want to support the show, check out the links in the bottom. Subscribe to my online academy if you want access to my content. You'll also be simultaneously supporting the show. If you don't have money for that, that's fine. There's a way to support the show without using any money, and that is giving me a like, a subscribe, share the show with somebody. Also, check out my On Guard BJJ Online Academy page on YouTube, and there you can check out my weekly techniques that I release every weekend. And yeah, just like, share, and subscribe those videos if you can. Any visibility helps, comments help, even if you disagree with me, if you want to argue with me. That's cool. Or if you have suggestions for the show, again, my contact links are in the bottom. So thank you all for the support. All right, how to learn a skill. Jiu-jitsu is a very skill-based activity, and there are many different skills that go into becoming a good jiu-jitsu fighter. As we all know, there's so many aspects to the sport. Another sport that I play, like hockey, again, it's not just as simple as learning how to run and kicking a ball. You have to learn how to skate, stick handle, hit, work cohesively as a team. There's so many different things in this sport that we do. And so how are we going to learn the skill of jiu-jitsu or a skill just in everyday life? I'm going to talk about it in this episode. Before I do, I want to talk about a story. I remember when I was in culinary arts, I was working at a hotel called the Westin Bayshore. This is where I began my apprenticeship to becoming a Red Seal chef. And it was my first experience working in a hotel. Full-time, I should say. I did do a couple of stages at other hotels, but it was my first time being employed full-time at a hotel. And I was put into garde manger, which is where it's essentially the cold kitchen, right? Salads and, meat platters and things like this. And I was put with this Indian fellow named Ravij. And Ravij was, for lack of a better word, a hard ass, right? And this was kind of in the times where you were allowed to be a hard ass to people in the industry. There was kind of a shift in the guard between the old chefs and the new chefs. All the old chefs were now starting to retire, and this new wave of like Cactus Club assembly line chefs were coming in. And to be honest, it was kind of the downfall of the industry, in my opinion. It's one of the reasons why I got out, and maybe that's a topic for another time. But anyways, the chef de partie, who is the person who overlooks this area of the kitchen, he was the chef de partie of garde manger. And when we went in there, I learned right away this guy was a fucking hard ass. He was always riding us super hard. It was all about efficiency, systems. He wasn't the best chef, like he wasn't the best cook, but he was able to be super efficient, get a large amount of stuff done in a short amount of time. And I really learned a lot about systems-based working with Ravij. And, this is a hotel that is cranking out banquets for like 2,000-3,000 people. So it's like one of the biggest at the time. It was before the convention center in Vancouver was built, and it was one of the biggest spaces to have a function in Vancouver. So if you're going to be running one of these stations, like you got to have the ability to do tons of food and be very productive. And because it was a union-based hotel, everyone gets their breaks, right? And so he was presented with the challenge of getting all the shit done, plus making sure everybody was breaking, or else he'd get in shit from his union, the union representative. Anyways, that's all kind of meaningless details. We were wearing these name pins, and on the name pins, the Westin had initiated this passion initiative where it was like let's write everybody's passion on their name tag. And I was a young 20-something-year-old kid, I just wanted to be the best chef I could be. I was very naive. This was actually before I found jujitsu. And my passion, stupidly, was hip hop. Which now I look back is like really cringe. Like, I was smoking a lot of weed back then, and music and hip hop is a lot better when you're high all the time, right? Not super proud of that, but I was high all the time, and I loved hip hop. Coming up in pubs, we would freestyle in the coolers and all this stuff, and we're just listening to hip hop all day long, getting high and all this stuff, and it was kind of a degenerate time of my life. And so I said hip hop, right? And then Rajiv's passion was knowledge. And I remember the time thinking like, man, what a dry thing to be passionate about. Like, you could be passionate about anything. You could be passionate about hockey or hip hop or music or even cooking. Like, at the time I was super passionate about cooking. And I was thinking knowledge, that's kind of like lame. Like, what do you mean you're passionate about knowledge? And as I got older, my passion has become maybe not knowledge, but just like skills, like developing new skills, finding ways to do cool things. And the last 5 years where I've been retired from the culinary arts, I've really been focusing my focus obviously into the business, into jiu-jitsu. That hasn't changed, but just like learning other skills, right? And I've become very passionate about learning, which is something that I think comes with age. I think as a 20-year-old, it's going to be difficult to find somebody who's passionate about learning and learning new skills and taking new things on. So that was just something that I wanted to share because it was super interesting for me as a young person at the time, looking at this guy's passion and thinking like, man, that is like boring. Like, I want to party. I want to cook. I want to crush. I want to, I want to enjoy my young life. And this guy was coming from a different perspective. He really valued, not just cooking, but learning other things, learning different knowledge and the great mysteries of the world. So Rajiv is actually somebody that I lost contact with. Last time I checked, I believe he moved back to India. I don't know if he's still cooking or not, but that guy really taught me a lot about, systems-based approach to cooking, a lot of how I structure my own learning today and how I structure systems in my business. And even after I left the Westin is based on what he taught me, efficiency. And a lot of it was hard. A lot of time he'd be yelling at me and giving me shit, saying things to me that nowadays, if somebody said to me, I would 100% stand up to them. But at the time I was like, man, I'm an apprentice. I got to work my ass off. I gotta make a good impression. Right. So that's my story about Rajiv. And, yeah, he was actually, it's one of those things where he was one of those guys where if you showed him you worked hard, he actually really started to like you. And me and him actually really started to get along quite well because he saw that I was willing to bust my ass for him. And he actually became a pretty cool guy to work with. All right, let's talk about why are skills valuable? Well, I mean, it's kind of a silly question, but a lot of people I find don't really value like new skills. They do like the bare minimum within their routine in life, and they're not really interested in like going outside of that routine. They might have a hobby. They might have like a favorite sports team or whatever, but just like dogs, humans are kind of creatures of habit and they like to stick with their routine. For me, skills make life valuable because they enrich your life, right? I believe that they make you smarter overall. They improve your problem solving. I believe that some skills will cross over to enhance your ability to perform well in other skills. So for me, like I found a direct correlation between the systems that I was implementing in culinary arts and jiu-jitsu. I was finding more efficient ways and I was identifying patterns that would make me better at jiu-jitsu because I was able to problem solve in cooking. Right. And this is almost like the ecological approach. I've talked about it before. Like, okay, you have to do this. You have this party that you have to cook for. There's 200 people. It's a lunch. Here's the menu. We have to execute this menu. Okay. You've done this menu before. Let's execute it. And so you go in and then quickly you find out that certain ingredients aren't there or certain equipment is broken down and you got to improvise on the fly. And, the culinary arts is full of this. And so this ability to improvise on the fly with the environment that I'm given, it allowed me to problem solve and really make things happen regardless of what issues came up, right? And that sort of problem solving ability kind of followed me into jujitsu. And I was learning how to be efficient with my time in the culinary arts. I was learning how to be efficient with my time just in everyday life, getting to and from work and getting to the gym. When it came time to building my business, like, you're basically developing systems from scratch, and through all different aspects of starting a business. Anyone who started a business has known this, and there's no real map or right or wrong. It's all troubleshooting. It's all trial and error. And a lot of the ability to stay calm under pressure and problem solve in my business that I have today, I got from culinary arts. So the skills crossed over a lot. Also, skills can create opportunities to help other people, enrich other people's life. So if you have a skill that is that you're very good at, you can use that to help other people that you care about. You can use it to trade skills. I've talked about skill trading between customers and parents that are within my school. If I need like a plumber or an electrician, I can skill trade jujitsu private lessons for their services. And this is a wonderful way to do business with people. And it also sort of bypasses the tax man, right? We can just do like under the table trades, which is very, very, very profitable and lucrative. Also, it's going to create opportunities to profit. So if you set out early in life, let's say you play piano from an early age, like, you might be able to use that skill. You weren't planning on profiting off that skill necessarily, but 20 years down the line, you might be, hired by cruise ships or whatever to perform, or even perform in like large theaters in front of big audiences. So you never know when a skill or a passion is going to become profitable later in life, if it's going to help you with other skills, or if it's going to help you help other people. It's funny how, like, earlier in life, I really wanted to focus on fun and partying and getting fucked up, and like culinary arts was my obsession. Then later on in life, my intermediate life, we'll say, like, my later 20s, it was more like, okay, what's the path that I want my life to take? Like, I need to figure out, do I want to stay in the cooking industry? Do I want to move on into something else? And if I'm going to make my path go towards jujitsu, how am I going to make money off jujitsu? How am I going to do this? When I want to have a family and I want to be around them, how am I going to change my focus from culinary arts to cooking? And then now that I'm sort of like, I'm established and I have a career that I feel like I'm comfortable with for the rest of my life, I think I'll be happy with this career for the rest of my life. Now my values have shifted towards building skills in my spare time. I have a lot more spare time now because I'm not cooking anymore. So it's like, now my mind has time to be bored. It has time to pick up other skills. And I think once you establish yourself in life, it's natural for you to sort of branch out and think about, okay, well, what other things can I learn right now? I want to quote a rapper that I really, really like. His name's Del the Funky Homo Sapien. You've probably heard of him. He was part of the Gorillas, and also he did a lot of solo work as well. And Del the Funky Homo Sapien had a great line in a song, and it's life is a thrill when your skill is developed. If you ain't got a skill or trade, then shut the hell up. He's basically just talking about, like, man, when you go through life and you develop a skill, life is fun. If you go through life and you have no skills and you just work for the next paycheck and it's just like a monotonous routine, it's not fun, right? And so I really do love that quote. That's Del the Funky Homo Sapien's awesome. I definitely recommend you check him out. But life is a thrill when your skill is developed, 100%. So for me, I think when it comes time to like decide what skills you're going to use or what skills you're going to pursue in life, usually for me, these skills are derived from like what interests me, what I feel passionate about. Like, I am not passionate about biology. That's why I dropped out of biology in grade 11. I just had no interest in it. And so my mind, just me personally, the type of person I am, if I'm not interested in something, it's very difficult for me to absorb knowledge. But something like history, I remember going to history class and I couldn't get enough of it. I loved learning about history. Loved learning about like past conflicts and how it shapes our world today. And so I learned earlier on that things that I was passionate about, those skills came very easily to me. It was almost just like organic. If I really started to develop a passion for cooking. And then just naturally, I was becoming a good chef because I cared about it. I was interested in it. And if I think it's really important that, whoever you are, especially the young people out there, make sure that you're finding your passion, because if you find your passion, it's like they say, if you make your job your passion, you'll never work another day in your life. Skills can also be influenced by necessity, right? So like things that you need to learn, like swimming or first aid or driving a car, like that, those are things that you're going to need in life. So naturally, those are skills that you need to acquire, right? If you never learn how to drive, it can be difficult to get around. If you never learn how to swim, there's a possibility you drown. Like for my kids, I think one of the biggest skills I need them to learn, obviously the social skills, coexisting with people, but like learning how to swim so that my kid doesn't drown at the pool is a huge thing. Learning how to grapple so that if my kid gets into a fight at school, I can rest assured that they're going to be able to protect themselves, protect their friends, protect each other. Um, and yeah, you'll notice that a lot of skills can be influenced by necessity. What is necessary to learn? Skills take work and sacrifice and time. And that's very, very important to understand. Like, it's not necessarily fun to learn a skill. It's a lot of hard work, and it's skills. Learning skills is like, it's like you're growing, right? And growing comes with pain. All skills are not comfortable to learn. It's never like you're just going to learn a skill overnight. You have to put in time. It's like an investment, right? And that's very, very important to understand, because a lot of people say that they want something. I want to learn the guitar, or I want to know jujitsu. I want to play the drums. I want to, all different things, but they don't have the desire for it. They're not willing to struggle and sacrifice, and like play guitar, and like, your fingers are aching after 10 minutes of playing guitar for the first time. You're trying to hit these chords and it feels like you'll never be able to make a song happen. But you just kind of have to like trust that process and invest more and more time in it. And then, you look back after a year of practice and you're like, hey, I can play a couple songs. Like, I can find the C, the D, the G chords pretty easily. Now I'm starting to work on my bar chords, right? So it's like everything at first will be hard and seem impossible, or at least anything intricate, anything worth doing. And so, there's a difference between like wanting something and needing something. It's like when people say they want to do jujitsu, or like, I want my black belt is a good one. Like, I always have people who start out in jiu-jitsu and they're like, I want to be a black belt, or I want to be a world champion. It's like, yeah, there's a difference between wanting something and working for it. Like, to be a world champion or to be a black belt, we're talking about at least a decade of hard work, sacrifice, injuries, setbacks, self-doubt, anger, depression. Like, there's all types of things that go along with that. And like, there's a price to be paid for such a valuable skill or achievement. And are you willing to do that? Do you have that like desire to do it? Do you need that, or do you just want that? Right. And I think that a lot of people who want things given to them, or they're accustomed to things being given to them, they're not really, they don't really like to do hard work. Right. And hard work is really necessary to achieve anything worth having, anything great. Why do so many people never invest in skills? Because, like I said, it's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable reality that if you want something that takes 10 years to get, you can't have it today, you can't have it tomorrow. And people are just so used to the convenience lifestyle that we have, and they just want things now. Think of things as an investment. You have to invest time, you have to invest pain and hardship into your skills. Make sure that you start now, because it's never too late to start. Now is the best time to start jiu-jitsu. Now is the best time to pick up a guitar and try and learn guitar. You will never be as young as you are today, right now, as you're listening to this, which is a terrifying, humbling reality. And that's just how it is, right? Like, if you keep waiting and keep procrastinating, you develop a habit of procrastination. It's not going to be good for developing skills or accomplishments or getting any kind of achievement. And also another reason why people wouldn't really they don't invest in their skills is because it's a break in their routine, right? If you have a break in your routine, again, that's super uncomfortable. Now, everybody's busy. I understand that not everybody, but a lot of people have kids. Everybody has a job, or they need to, their days are busy. Everyone's days are super, super busy right now. We hardly have enough time in a day. Now we have to set a certain period of time each day to develop a new skill. This is going to require a break in routine, which is scary for a lot of people. Even just the thought of working that time in is daunting to most people, and it's enough to deter them from developing a new skill. Fortunately for me, I'm lucky. I have my own business and I dictate my own hours, and my hours are not the usual 9 to 5. So I'm fortunate enough to have breaks where I can, pick up a guitar for an hour or do drums for an hour or whatever I'm going to do. Not everybody has that freedom. But the reason why I have that freedom is because I broke my routine to start a business, right? And it didn't happen overnight. There was like 3 or 4 years where I had to work 2 jobs, which is super uncomfortable. It actually almost damn near killed me by giving me an autoimmune disease, being so worn down. But in the end, it was super worth it. And look at the life I have now. I get to talk to you guys on a podcast. I get to have a school where I get to teach Jiu Jitsu for a living. It's pretty amazing. So I knew the price and I paid the price, and now I get to enjoy the fruits of my labor, right? And that's kind of how all investments are. There's no short-term fortune that can be made. It's all long-term. And so you got to start now because it's never too late. All right, I want to say a quote here from Henry Ford. Quote, and we all know who Henry Ford is, right? Henry Ford is the founder of Ford Motors, one of the biggest car companies in the world. Henry Ford, quote, "Anyone who stops learning is old, whether 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young," end quote. And so what this basically means is, like, if you keep learning, your mind will stay sharp. It keeps you sharp to always think about wanting more knowledge, always thinking about, okay, there's more things I can learn. There's more books I can read. I'm not a reader, so I'm not speaking from a place of experience. Like, I'm not really a big reader, but like, for example, there's a lot of people out there who read books and it keeps them sharp, and you got to keep sharpening that iron, because the second you want to stop reading, or you want to stop learning new skills or doing things that are worth doing, that's when you start to age, right? That's when you start to decline. Your brain starts to decline. It goes into retirement mode or whatever. So anyone who stops learning, anyone who keeps learning stays young, and I'm hoping to do that into the later years of my life. Let's talk about something: the value of failure. Talked about it before on the show. Failure is so important. It's almost like I always tell the kids in my class, when you fail at something, if you get tapped out or if you try to do a move and it doesn't work, like, don't look at that as I failed. Look at that as I found out what didn't work. And so now you know what doesn't work. We don't need to make that same mistake again. This is like the idea of trial and error. I remember when I started my business, this was like kind of my motto, right? Like, I would spend thousands of dollars trying to get new leads in the door and get no return out of it. And like, what are you going to do? Ask for your money back? Business doesn't work that way, right? Like, you go and you try to buy 100 gis from a manufacturer, and then the gis come in and they were done wrong. Like, this shit has happened to me, Oh, that manufacturer didn't stand by his word. Okay, don't use him anymore. I got to find someone else. Like, is that failure, or is that you figuring out, what didn't work? And if you look at failure as you failed, then it will be just that. It will be failure. But if you look at failure as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to see what didn't work and to try something else, then it's never really a failure, right? And so I think that failure is actually incredibly valuable if you have the right mindset for it. Don't look at failure as, I failed my goal and my mission. Just it's another part of the process that is getting you to an overall goal. Okay, let's have a quote here by Virgin Records founder Richard Branson. Quote, "You don't learn to walk by following rules. You learn by doing and by falling over," end quote. So he's saying, again, like, failing, like when you're learning how to walk, if you fall over, now the child who's learning how to walk sort of troubleshoots it, and they're like, oh, I fell over. I got to hold on to something now. And then you'll see your kids start couch surfing. It's an incredibly cute moment. And when the kids are couch surfing, just for the new parents out there, like, enjoy those moments, because pretty soon the kids are running around and those cute phases are over. But yeah, you don't learn to walk by following rules. I can't tell a child how to walk. and expect them to be able to follow my instructions. It doesn't work that way. Child has to essentially echo the walking, and they're going to fall over a bunch, and they're going to, they're going to land on their butt. They're going to land on their head. They're going to get hurt. And that's kind of up to the parents to make sure that their kids don't die, because they're little suicide machines. Kids only learn by falling over and getting back up. And they're like, oh shit, I fell. Okay, what do I do next time to make sure I don't fall? Here's another quote from Pablo Picasso, quote, "I am always doing that which I cannot do in order that I may learn how to do it," end quote. So he's saying, he's always trying to do the things that are difficult, all the things that he doesn't know how to do them, so that eventually, you throw enough ideas at the wall, eventually something sticks, right? And then you learn how to do it by failing. And again, the value of failure, especially in jiu-jitsu, if you're a competitor, you're definitely going to fail sometimes. But just because you lose a competition doesn't mean that you failed necessarily. Maybe you didn't achieve your goal of winning said competition. But in the overall scheme of things, you gained experience from it and you saw what didn't work. If you look at it like I failed and that's that, yeah, I mean, that's a failure that you're not really going to benefit from. But if you look at it like, hey, here's things that I did wrong and things that I could do better for next time, and then, you can improve from that. I mean, I think that's kind of a success in a way. So again, the value of failure, very, very important. Don't be afraid to fail. A lot of people also don't start new skills because they're afraid to fail. And that fear of failure will be like one of the number one things that will prevent someone from growing or developing new skills. For example, like my son, he's a bit of a softie. He's a real sweetheart, but he's just starting to do kids jiu-jitsu class. And I'm trying to teach these little kids. He's 5. I'm trying to teach them inversions, which is not easy, but it's shocking how well a lot of them get it. And when I tell him to do inversions, his name's Remy. He's like, I don't know how to do it. And then he almost starts crying because he doesn't know how to do it. And I say, there's only one way to learn how to do it, and that's trying. And basically, I don't say this, but you got to fuck up first. You got to fuck up and make sure that your body sees what doesn't work. And then eventually you can learn how to invert. So making sure that you're rushing into failure is really, really important. Try to fuck things up as much as you can when you're developing a new skill. That's the only way to get good, because you get that immediate feedback right away. Oh, this didn't work. Right. So for me, my career, the skills that I've learned in my career, culinary arts was the first one. And then obviously now jiu-jitsu, podcasting, which again is trial and error. That's why I listen to my podcast back. I try not to say so much. It's difficult. There you go again. Especially when I'm doing it all in one take, right? I'm not editing this a bunch. I'm trying to get it clean on one shot, trying to give it to you all in one unedited shot. And that is a skill that's difficult and it's not easy. So I always listen back and try and see, okay, where can I make adjustments? How can I structure the podcast more cleanly when I'm talking to guests? This question didn't land the way that I want. How should I ask about these questions? Should I avoid these topics? It's a skill to develop podcasting, just like anything else. And it's something that I'm constantly trying to get better at. I hope you like it. And speaking from necessity, things like driving, being a good parent, swimming, first aid, recreation, the things that I like to do, the skills that I'm developing right now, currently in my life, are drums, guitar. I'm trying to learn Portuguese, trying to become a better hockey player. I think it's really important that you do carve some time out to have those recreational skills, or those skills that are not pertaining to your job. You got to have something else in your life that can enrich your life and that can give you more meaning and add quality to your days. You might not be a fantastic guitar player right now. I'm not. I'm probably a blue belt, I would say white belt, 2 or 3 stripe at guitar. I can play a couple songs, but I'm not good. But over time, I know that if I stick with it in 10 years, it's something that I might get decent at. And I'm willing to suck right now. I'm willing to not be good now to be good in 10 years, if that makes sense. I want to talk about the stages of skill development, just so that we have a map for when we pick up that guitar, or when we do that new skill, what are going to be the different phases that you're going to go through. So the first phase, there's 4 phases, I would say. The first phase is we don't know what we don't know. We're unaware of what we don't know. So you could call this unconscious incompetence, right? You don't know what you don't know. And I remember when I first started cooking, I thought I was like hot shit, right? I kind of looked at it as like a beginner's luck thing. Like I had some good success in the kitchen, and I look around at my peers. I'm like, man, I'm outperforming these guys. I'm like really good. But then as you keep going, you start to realize like, oh, I didn't know what I didn't know what I don't know. I was getting problems thrown at me, and I didn't have answers for them at all. And there were days where there would be downright blunders, right? And so then you come to phase two, which is conscious incompetence, where now you realize, oh, the skill that I'm learning is so vast that I now realize what I don't know. Or I don't know what I don't know, but at least I know that I don't know what I don't know. Like you're aware now that the topic of jujitsu, for example, you're starting jujitsu, you realize like, oh shit, I may never know everything, right? But I know that now. I'm aware of that. I can see I've had some success, I've had some failure, and I can see that. So the second phase of learning a skill is like conscious incompetence. You're now aware of what you don't know. Or you're aware that you don't know what you don't know. The third phase is conscious competence. So now we have to think to perform the task, but we do have some skill. So maybe this is where like you'll be doing a lot of practice, and experimentation. So for example, now I'm able to play the drums, and I'm able to like play songs that I hear the first time. I'll hear it the first time. I'm like, okay, I can, I think I can figure out how this song sounds, but I got to think about it. It's not automatic. It's still conscious. I have to apply my brain to think about that song. In drums, I would say I'm like a 3-stripe blue belt, maybe 2-stripe blue belt. So I'm like, okay, right? I can hear a song and I can probably play it pretty quickly, but I have to think about it. And then the fourth phase is unconscious competence, meaning like, man, you can just play something you hear automatically. You don't have to really think about it too much. This is essentially, you've become skilled. You've developed a rock solid skill. And you can say I'm a decent guitar player. I'm a good drummer. Or maybe you're, by this time, hopefully you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You can be considered what some would say skilled. I would even go so far to say that there's another phase, another stage of learning a skill, and that's the ability to be able to teach a skill. However, for me, that is different because I naturally have an inclination towards being an instructor. I know not everybody wants to be a teacher or looks at it that way, but I think to be able to teach a skill is such an important part of your development. For me, when it came to cooking, I found that I have more of an understanding of cooking or jiu-jitsu when I showed it to somebody. When I was able to teach a peer of mine, hey, this is like what you could do. These are some of the problems that I've run into here. This is the desired result. This is the industry standard. This is what we want. To be able to teach a skill, very, very important. All right, now let's talk about what is the best way to learn a skill. This is subjective. This is what I have. Again, if you have suggestions or things that you would add or disagree with, leave it in the comments. Even if you just enjoyed the show, leave me a thumbs up, leave me a comment that says, hey, good show. More comments you guys give me, the more visibility I get. What is the best way to learn the skill? First of all, I would recommend you learn how to learn. So what does that mean, right? Well, learning how to learn for me is like try to find what kind of learner you are. Like what makes it easy for you to absorb information in your mind. For me, I'm a visual learner. I like to watch things and then I can mimic things. I can sort of replicate things just by watching it. And then, of course, you have to feel it and refine that skill. For example, I'm not a very good, just by reading something, I'm not a good learner that way, but I do know people who learn best by reading. So you're going to want to see like, what is the best way that you find that you learn something, and how can you perceive learning the best, most efficient way for yourself? I also recommend finding a mentor and some kind of motivation to learn. So like, if you're going to, I use this analogy all the time. If you were going to learn your apprenticeship as a plumber, you don't want to have a mentor that sucks at plumbing, or a mentor that's always cutting corners on the job, right? Or giving you advice that is not ethical or whatever. Like, you want to find a mentor who puts quality first. I don't care what you do. I think that's the most important thing. Quality first, everything else will come. If you want to be a profitable plumber, find a mentor that will teach you how to do things right always. And if you do things right the first time, the profits will come, right? Whereas if your mentor is like, hey, there's a way that you can sort of like, you make more money if you buy cheaper materials, then you can save more money or whatever. It's like, yeah, but then you're not going to have good work and you're going to get a bad reputation because your shit's always going to fall apart. Like, this is not the way to go. For me, it's always about quality. When I was a cook, become the best cook I can possibly be, which explains why I was never a head chef, because to be a head chef, you basically have to kiss everyone's ass above you. And I realized that. And I was like, oh, this isn't about being the best cook. This is about politics. This is about playing the game. And that wasn't for me. For jiu-jitsu, it's like, hey, I want to have a business based on having the best jiu-jitsu I possibly can. I want to study the best guys I possibly can. I want to offer the best product I possibly can. I'm not going to try and get as many members as I can and make money that way, because I want to be known as having quality jiu-jitsu. You can say whatever you want about me as a person or how I, my social media antics or whatever, but you can't say that I don't care about jiu-jitsu. You can't say that like I don't run a good class or whatever. That's sort of my standard in jiu-jitsu. When you're learning a new skill, create the best environment possible. So, even guys like Danaher have talked about like the best environment possible is one where we can kind of like joke around and sort of joke around with the guys. A lot of the time that, where we have that environment where like, yes, we do need to work hard. We got to get down to business. But after practice, we all sit around and we chit chat and we socialize and shoot the shit and make fun of each other. Like, for me, this is like the best environment possible. Okay. Obviously, you're not like taking things personally or making personal digs at someone, but like, to be able to joke around and to care about somebody so much, like that's how I treat my friends. That I came up in kitchens and hockey teams, it's almost like a construction site. It's like working in a fire hall. Like everybody is like, almost has that gallows humor. And when you're in an environment like that, that's where I find you get the most growth, right? And obviously surrounding yourself with the best people that you possibly can, you are going to just naturally level up by seeing higher level people. Whereas if you put yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by low tier people, it's going to be difficult to push yourself to the next level and to have and to push them to the next level, right? So create a really good environment. If you're going to, learn jiu-jitsu and you go to like a shitty gym, you're probably not going to get good jiu-jitsu. But if you go to a good gym and everyone's like friends there and they're tight knit and people care about each other genuinely, that's a great environment for growth. Okay. How about this one? You got to start somewhere. So why not start right now, right? The best way to learn a skill, start somewhere. And that's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel like you suck. And that's what it should feel like. And, you just trust the process that over time, that's going to change, right? If you want to have those results immediately, it's going to be difficult. Nothing, like I said earlier, nothing worth doing comes easy, right? So you got to start somewhere and you got to look for that failure. You got to create habits and consistency. So, if you want to get good at jiu-jitsu, you better be practicing at least 3 times a week. Obviously more is ideal, but 3 times a week is so important. You got to build the habit. You got to make it so that like getting off the couch and going to jiu-jitsu just becomes a part of your routine. Every person who's ever excelled in any skill or become exceptional in anything is usually because they have a strong routine. And jiu-jitsu and, musical instruments and other sports, it's no different. So you have to develop a routine where your habits and your consistency to going to practice is just sort of baked into your life without exception. Practice with intention. There's a podcast, How to Take Over the World, with Ben Wilson. I talk about it on the show. I've had Ben on the show before, where he looks at historical figures in the world and he talks about, how a lot of the time they're like warlords or fantastic athletes or coaches, just people who have really had great influence in the world. One of them was Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I really love this episode. I really recommend everybody checks out this podcast. I love it. And the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger is awesome because he talks about how Arnold, when he really became serious about weightlifting, he really started lifting with intention. So what does that mean? It means like, okay, let's say I really want to grow my chest when I work out. And I'm not a huge weightlifter. Okay. I weightlift to become a better athlete for jiu-jitsu, but let's say I really want to grow my chest. Well, when you're doing your pressing exercises, you could do them so many different ways. You could just go through the motion of pressing, or you could really focus on targeting certain muscle groups to get desired effects. Like when you're doing a push-up, There's so many ways you can do a push-up. I could do a push-up that targets pretty much like almost all triceps, my arms, or I could do push-ups that more targets my chest, which is actually the desired effect, right? Where we want to grow our chest, grow our pectoral muscles. So practicing with intention, going into practice and having like um, going in and having a goal, right? And thinking like, okay, today when I go into practice, when I go to jiu-jitsu, I want to make sure I don't get my guard passed, or I want to prevent my partner from getting chest to chest, or hey, I want to make sure that I can start using this new submission that I learned, or I want to use ashigaram. Whatever the goal is, make sure that you have intention when you head into practice. When you're practicing that skill, have a goal in mind and follow it. Making sure that we're practicing as much as possible. Practice, practice, practice. There's the old saying, it takes 10,000 hours to reach mastery, is what they say for any skill. And for me, I wonder, like, can you ever get to mastery? I don't know. It's mastery is almost a word I've talked about before. Like, I don't ever believe I can become a master of jiu-jitsu or a master of culinary arts, because there's always going to be stuff that I don't know, but we can try, right? We can always try through consistency over time to be as best as we can be. So the consistency and just the habits and the practice are so important for skill development. And fail as often as you possibly can. Rush towards failure. When you meet failure, have the mindset not that you failed, but almost be delighted that you found something that didn't work. Like a guy, GSP, who used to say it? I think it was Danaher. He said that when he would watch GSP in the training room, when he would get submitted back in the Blue Basement days, he would almost be delighted. He would be like, wow, I got caught with that. Like, that's impressive. Something caught me. I didn't expect that. And he said that there was a look of delight in his face because he saw something that didn't work. And I think that that's so cool, right? Like, so many people get submitted in training and they take it personally, or they get upset, or they feel down on themselves. Guys, getting submitted in training is a fucking good thing. You learn about what doesn't work. And if you can be delighted by failure and amused by it, it's really not that hard on your ego, right? It's when you take things personal because you hate losing. And I know people who hate losing, but they don't come off as happy people. They don't come off as somebody who enjoys the process, right? Get used to losing when you're trying to learn something as difficult and as amazing as jiu-jitsu, for example. Make sure that you be patient with yourself, right? Like, don't hate yourself for losing. Just trust the process. Another thing that I think is important when you're learning a new skill is like measure your skill. So or should I say measure the growth of your skills, right? Like, some people keep a diary or a spreadsheet logging how many hours they do. I know people like this. For me, I've never done that. But if it helps you to take notes and to keep a diary of things that you learned, things that you did right, things that you did wrong, maybe there is no right or wrong. Shout out to Greg Souders. There's only effective or ineffective, but to log these things so that you can measure growth over time, very, very important. I think, if that helps you. For me, it's all up here. I don't have to write notes down usually. Very rarely do I write notes, or do I have a log in my mind, because I have a pretty photographic memory. But if it helps you, it's very, very important to like take notes and things like that. For me, I measure my growth just through daily successes and failures in the gym, right? Or competitions. And if I fail, it's not the end of the world, because there's always going to be another competition. There's always going to be another training session, right? Tomorrow's another day to get good at something. So that's kind of the mindset that I like to have. This one is so important. Develop systems, right? And I'm going to talk about mental models here, because of course, maybe you follow my brother's show. It's where I started BJJ Mental Models. It was a podcast that we started together. What is a mental model? Definition of a mental model. A mental model is a simplified explanation of how something works. Any idea, belief, or concept can be boiled down to its essence. Like a map, mental models highlight key information while ignoring irrelevant details. They're tools for compressing complexity into manageable chunks. So you're kind of like taking something and you're trying to see the overarching patterns and concepts within that thing. And in that way, instead of memorizing every small, minute detail or any irrelevant information, you are breaking it down into digestible chunks, concepts, and principles. And this is why like conceptual jiu-jitsu has become so popular. Rob Bernacki, my coach, he's one of the first guys to really talk about like concepts rather than moves, right? Why memorize 300 moves when we can memorize 10 concepts, right? And then those concepts can be applied to different situations, and you can sort of like problem solve a lot easier this way. And this is where BJJ mental models came from. So, developing systems and essentially identifying mental models that help you learn a skill when you become more familiar with it is incredibly important when it comes to practice and application. So, definitely think about what kind of systems and mental models help you learn said skill. What concepts and principles and patterns do you see within that skill that you're trying to learn, and they repeat themselves over and over and over again, and how do they apply to the application of the skill? Prioritize long term. Like I said, any skill that you're trying to learn, let's assume that it's a skill worth learning. It's going to be a long term goal. So to expect results in the first, week or month or year, no one gets good at anything in a year, guys. And you have to be willing to suck for a long time to be awesome at something long term. Okay. And invest in yourself, invest in time. Time is the most important thing that you can do when it comes to skill development. Put yourself in a situation where you envision yourself getting good at something down the road, not today or tomorrow. No skill worth learning comes easy. For competitors, when you see Tynan Dalpro win the Worlds, or you see Gordon Ryan smash everyone at ADCC, people only see the result. Like, they don't see the countless hours of dedication in the gym. They don't see the hardships. They don't see the failures, the injuries, the days where these great athletes feel like quitting. You know what I mean? They don't see those days where they're just like questioning themselves, and they want to stop. They want to quit because it sucks so much. They only see the result, which is, they're winning the gold medal, or in Gordon's case, he's absolutely destroying everybody, making them look like white belts. That's all people see. They don't see all the stuff behind the scenes. So you got to understand that, you're, as somebody who wants to achieve something great or wants to achieve a skill, those times are ahead of you for sure. And you're going to want to quit at times, but that's okay. It's okay to want to quit, but just keep going. Trust the process and enjoy the process. Another thing everyone should be thinking about is accepting feedback. So when you're learning a skill, I think it's important to ask for feedback, and any feedback is good feedback, even if it's feedback you disagree with. When I get feedback from my program about something that I might disagree with, that doesn't mean that I shoot back at them and disregard the feedback. I take out all feedback. All right. Whether or not I believe it's true is another story, but to start saying, oh, well, that's not good feedback, or that's a dumb idea or whatever. I mean, now we're starting to shut doors, and we're starting to deny feedback. Feedback can be valuable. It doesn't matter who it comes from. So make sure that you accept feedback. Like, growth is uncomfortable, and sometimes taking feedback is very, very uncomfortable. It can really damage the ego. I speak from experience, especially any business owner out there. Any coach of any kind is going to get feedback from somebody that sucks. It sucks to hear, because you just want to do the best job you possibly can. But accept all feedback and don't disregard any feedback. It's all valuable feedback, right? Let's talk about repetition without repetition. This is a concept that Greg Souders introduced to me. And it's the idea of like not trying to repeat the same thing over and over again. So when I'm learning a new skill, like let's say drums, for example, I want to learn drums. I want to learn a song. Do I just memorize that song exactly how it's played? Or do I try to listen to when the kick drum is happening, when the hi-hat's happening, when the snare is happening, and then I modify these things slightly? So I might play a Fool in the Rain by Led Zeppelin with a different kick drum, but I'm still playing the same hi-hat and the same snare. Now I'm adjusting the hi-hat, but I'm playing the snare and the kick drum the same way that it's normally played. And then I'm throwing in these different variables and changing things up. So you're playing the same song, right? I'm still playing Fool in the Rain, but at the same time I'm adjusting the song and I'm adding different variables. And this is like the essence of jiu-jitsu, right? And this is where the eco guys really do have it right, where we're not drilling arm bars from the closed guard in sequence and hitting it in live situation. It's just not going to happen. But if you understand the concepts and the principles of the arm bar, you could potentially replicate that move again, given different defenses or different variations from your opponent, right? And it's not to say that you can't get the same desired outcome. It's just to say that the path to that outcome will always be different, right? And so when we're drilling, I really like what the Mendez brothers do. A lot of the guys from AOJ, when they drill, it's like live, active drilling, right? Or creative drilling, as Danaher says, where you'll give them a task, but the uke is going to give you different looks and different reactions. And it's not necessarily a win or lose situation. It is almost a task-focused game, but you're not trying to defeat the other person. It's more just like, okay, here's your goal, but the other person's still going to give you what you want, but they're going to throw different obstacles in your way. They're going to add different movements and throw different variables in your way. I would say like prioritize engaging with the environment and with variability rather than memorizing step by step, right? If I could just simplify things. Repetition without repetition is just that. You're getting your reps, you're doing the same task, but you're getting different feedback and different variability. And when you do that, that is where like, you're really able to like problem solve on the fly, because you could learn a move. I can teach you how to do an arm bar by telling you. It's just like a baby learning how to walk. I could teach you how to do an arm bar by telling you, but you'll never be able to replicate that arm bar against somebody if you've never been put in the position hundreds of times and trying to make it work, right? There's always going to be different paths to a desired result. And I think repetition without repetition is so valuable when you're learning a skill. That's why when I go to my drum coach and I do drum lessons, he's always getting me to mix up the tempo of different songs. Like I said, changing the tempo of the hi-hat, just so that I'm used to those different movements, because you'll notice for any drummer out there, you will learn how to play a song. And then the second you try to adjust one of the individual drums, all of a sudden it feels like a completely different song because your body movement is not used to that, right? But then you'll get to the point, 10 years down the line where you have unconscious competence, right? Stage 4 of learning, where you could literally just play the song and change up these variables without even thinking about it. And that's kind of the goal when we're trying to develop skills, is getting to that 4th stage where you don't even need to think about it and you're incredibly competent with it. And that's where I would like to be one day in these situations, right? Okay, how can we stay sharp with our skills? Practice, right? And you don't even need to practice too much. It could be 5-10 minutes a day. One of the tips that I looked at when it said, becoming a better guitar player online, is it just said, just pick up the guitar 5 minutes a day, just a little bit, just to maintain your timing. It doesn't really take too much to keep skills sharp once you already have them. Just do it a little bit each and every day. And so it sort of falls back into the concept of building habits, building a routine, baking that routine into your life. Okay, I'd like to quote Leonardo da Vinci right now, just obviously a legend in history, inventor, artist, Leonardo da Vinci, quote, "Learning is the only thing the mind never exhausts, never fears, and never regrets," end quote. So you will never regret learning something, right? At first, when you look at the task of learning something or learning a new skill, it's daunting. You're like, fuck, I'm going to have to actually use my brain. I'm going to have to get my brain to get its ass off the couch and learn and like apply myself. It takes effort, it takes calories, energy. It's uncomfortable pushing your brain to learn new things. But once you learn that skill, you never regret it, right? Like no guitarist ever looked back and was like, man, I regret learning guitar. It's like, no, look at all this cool shit you can do. You can entertain people. You can make beautiful music with your hands. Like you're never going to regret learning something. So I really love that quote by Leonardo da Vinci. All right, let's talk about juggling multiple skills. Multiple new skills, I should say. This is what I'm doing right now. So it's maybe to my detriment. I have a problem where I'll try to take on new skills all at once. Whereas I think a lot of people would be more effective to just focus their energy on one new skill at a time. But for me, I'm like, okay, I want to do guitar. I want to do drums. I want to learn Portuguese. I want to, I want to improve my puck handling in hockey. I want to become a better skater. I want to become a better coach. I want to become a better podcaster. I want to do this. I want to do that. Like it's so many different things at once, and it is overwhelming. But I also have in the back of my mind that it's not a race, and that I'm expecting these to be like a 10, 15, 20 year investment. You know what I mean? And so I figure like a little bit each day goes a long way, right? One day at a time, I think is so good. And if you don't get down on yourself because you can't learn something right away, it's a lot easier to just trust the process and keep going. So I think it's great to have, multiple projects on the go at the same time that you're trying to develop. It's not easy. It takes a lot of hard work, but it's totally doable, right? If you just look at it that way, everything takes time and you just sort of invest into it. Let's talk about some mistakes that can be made when you're trying to build new skills. So first is going into a new skill with no goals, right? Having no goals. I think it's important to have, short-term goals and long-term goals. A lot of people take on too much at once, right? And again, that sort of echoes what I just said. Maybe you want to take on multiple instruments at once. Well, for some people that could be too much at once. If you have the time for it, maybe not so much. It's kind of all subjective. A lack of help or mentor. So if you don't have help, or you don't ask for help, or you don't have somebody to coach you through something, you're probably not going to make the gains that you would make if you did have that help. So for me, I went to a drum coach for, months and months. And I made some really good progress working with this guy. Shout out to Steve Lindsay in Port Coquitlam from Lindsay Music. However, with guitar, I've never gone to a guitar. I've never had guitar privates before. I've only been self-taught from what I've watched on YouTube and Guitar Tabs. It's like an app that I have. So I'm self-taught on guitar. I guarantee my progress in guitar would be faster if I hired a coach. You know what I mean? It would it's almost like not even disputable. It's harder to teach yourself something than have somebody show you and work with you. So that's my own, that's something that I need to work on, but not having a mentor and not asking for help or feedback definitely can stifle your growth with a new skill. Making sure that you're building habits. If you don't build habits, if you don't make practice a habit, your skills they're just not going to be good. That's just how it is, mathematically speaking, unless you're just an absolute phenom in something. And those people do exist. You got to build good habits and get to practice. And if you hate the process, if you dislike the process, I guarantee it's going to be difficult for you to acquire any skills. First of all, why would you develop a skill with something that you don't like to learn? The only other reason you would do it is for necessity. You need to do it to make money. You need to do it to survive or keep your family safe or whatever. Otherwise, if you dislike the process, if you're I want to become a jiu-jitsu black belt, but fuck, I hate doing jiu-jitsu. It's okay, this is probably going to be a pretty short journey for you. So make sure that you get used to the idea of enjoying the process, as uncomfortable as it may be. And then the last thing that can be a mistake when you're trying to build new skills is giving up too soon, right? A lot of people, like I said earlier, they get so obsessed with convenience and things being given to them today, right now. They want things right now that they just quit. And this is like the blue belt blues, right? When you become a blue belt, it's almost like you're entering phase 2 of learning. You are now consciously incompetent, to put it politely. You realize what you don't know. And a lot of people get their blue belts and they're like, you know what? I'm done with this. I realize how hard this journey is. I realize this journey never really fucking ends. And so I'm just going to put it down. I'm just going to stop practicing, and then they never progress, right? And so giving up too soon because something is too hard is one of the biggest things that stops somebody from building a skill. Don't give up, right? As long as you enjoy doing the thing, and it enriches your life, I recommend pursuing it. Last question or the last part I want to say before we get out of here is I have a question for you guys, and you can leave me answers in the comments. Do we ever become a master of a skill? Right? What do you guys think? Leave me a comment. Do you ever become a master of a skill? I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Technically, I'm a 2nd degree black belt. I am so far from being a master. It's not even funny. There's so many mistakes I make. There's so many things that I could do right, that I could do better as a coach, as a competitor, as a practitioner, as a father, as a husband. Do you ever master a skill? What do you guys think? For me, I don't think you ever do, but I think as long as we're aiming for that mastery and we're aiming for consistency, and enjoying and trying to enjoy the process and just embracing that, you can get to a really high level in whatever it is you do. Would love to hear you guys' comments in the comment section. All right, guys, that is my podcast on learning how to learn a skill. Ooh, out of breath here. Okay, you guys want to support the show, you know where to go. Check the links in the bottom. Check out my online academy. Give me a like, share, subscribe. Please check out my YouTube channel for the On Guard BJJ Online Academy for techniques. And please, like I said, smash that like, share, and subscribe. Guys, I'm out of here. I really, really hope that you guys pick up a new skill soon. If you're in the middle or you're of a new skill, or you're contemplating picking up a new skill, remember, there's no other time to start from right now. Right now, today is a day that it could change your life, right? If you're considering doing something and you just need that little bit of motivation to get your ass off the couch and do it now. What if it's jiu-jitsu, right? If you're listening, and you probably already do jiu-jitsu, but like maybe you have that friend that's like, man, I should start jiu-jitsu. I'm just gonna get into good shape first, which is the cliche that we always hear, right? Guys, there's no other way to get good at something than to start right now. You're never going to be as young as you are right now. Now is a fantastic time to do anything. And when you do, get ready to fail and enjoy that failure. Embrace the failure. That's all I have for you guys today. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Check me out next week. And I love you all. Take care. Remember, the Everyday Jiu Jitsu podcast. It's everything you need to know about jiu jitsu. And thanks for listening. Bye-bye now.